Lesson 9.4b, Scatter Plots and Lines of Best Fit. So, let me read what they've got, and then I'm going to tell you a little bit about scatter plots in general. So a line graph can be useful in predicting future events because it shows relationships or trends over time. A scatter plot displays two sets of data on the same graph. Scatter plots are also useful for making predictions because they show trends in data. A line through the middle of the data on a scatter plot is called a line of best fit. So we need to talk about why in the world these things even exist and why do they look like they do. Actually, the one that's there doesn't look like the scatter plot I would have in mind at all. It almost looks like it's lined up. So I think what I'm going to do for this is, if you're still writing, just take a little break, leave a little space, and I want to pull this up to show you what a scatter plot could look like. So here's... So scatter plots are on a graph that tell two kinds of information. So let's say this scatter plot would show outside temperature, and this one would show a heat bill. You've got to understand that on these scatter plots, they always start here in the corner at 0. And if you're thinking about your heat bill when it's 0 degrees outside, you probably hear your parents talking about your heat bill. What do they say when it would be 0 degrees outside?
It's too high.
It's too high. So it would be up here somewhere. And then you can say 10 degrees, 20, 30, and as it goes, the temperature goes up, what's going to happen to that heat bill?
It's going to go up. It's going to go down.
It's going to go down. But let's think about something. Do you realize that people that have different heat sources, their bills would be different? Right?
Yeah.
So it's not going to be in a nice, neat little line. So maybe 20 degrees outside, it might be like this for somebody, where at 30 degrees for somebody else might still be up here, depending on what kind of heat they have, how big their house is. All of those things make it different. So scatter plots aren't in a nice, neat little line, but overall, what's going to happen as the temperatures go up? What's going to happen, Olivia? They're going to go lower until they're finally non-existent, because at 80 degrees outside, do you guys have the heat on at all?
No.
No. So this would be a general trend downward. Okay, that would be a general trend downward, and that would be considered a negative correlation. A negative correlation. So I just wanted you to see that. I also wanted you to see that scatter plots don't go in nice, neat little lines. They go in trends because scatter plots represent real people and real data. And that means it's not a nice, perfect little line. That's why they made these things. So I do need to show you the 3 different kinds of scatter plots. Can I erase that?
Wait. So
I will wait. So there are 3 types of scatter plots. And you don't have to draw these very big. 3 types of scatter plots. So we're going to do this. If the scatter plot you read from left to right, because you read a graph like you read a book left to right, if there is a general trend upwards, it is a positive correlation. I will tell you that the word correlation could be substituted by maybe relationship or association. It depends on where you're reading about these, but it's a positive relationship, it's a positive association, it's a positive correlation. But the important part is the word positive. All right, if you start high and it starts heading down lower in a general trend, we've already shown that that is a negative correlation. So you're going to be asked to identify these types of correlation. And then there's the scatter plot that looks like this. Is there any trend at all?
No.
No. So you would say no correlation. Now I want you to make sure you do not get the last two confused, because sometimes when there is a negative relationship, kids get that in their mind thinking that means there's none. Those are two different things. A negative correlation, a relationship, there is a relationship. Negative just means, or no just means it's all over the place. All right, now the next thing I want to show you is back on the other page. The example that's drawn there, that's pretty neat how it kind of goes in line, but this line would be considered the line of best fit. They take the data and they try to put a number in, so that is the line of best fit. It shows the general trend. That's how people make predictions. They continue that line and then they might ask about different things. So it says, this is the line graph that shows the Morales family car trip, and it says after 250 miles, how much gas did they have left? So if you look at where 250 is and then follow over, it's less than 6, isn't it? It's less than 6 gallons. So what's happening is when they're starting out their trip here at 0, they have a lot of gas in their gas tank, right? And the more they drive, the gas tank goes lower. So there's a negative relationship. So you can make predictions. So it says definitely at 250 they were down below 6. So they estimated 5.5. And then they say how far can they travel before they run out. So they continue the line. You see that? They continue the line till where it hits 0, and they think about 410 miles. I don't know whether I would trust driving that far so that I wouldn't run out of gas. I would stop somewhere before that. But they're making a prediction that they can go to 410 miles. So you can make predictions if you extend that line of fit. Let's look at the example below. Okay, we'll have to answer some questions. This is birds observed in Lake Park. It's always comparing two things. It's the year and the number of birds. Okay, so just be aware that you can't tell exactly what they're on, but you can make a good, I want to say, educated guess. So the first question is, how many birds were in 2009? How many birds were in 2009? What do you think, Sarah? What'd you say? I just couldn't. I think what you said first is right. I just couldn't hear you. What'd you say? 34. Okay, so 2009's here. It's right below 45. So what would be a good guess? Yeah, about, oops, wrong place. About 44. You could even maybe say 43. So we'll say about 44 birds. 43 would also be a good, maybe even a little bit lower than that. So, but I definitely wouldn't go to 45 because it's definitely below that line, right? Okay. What relationship do you see between the number of birds and the year? Well, it's not really asking you what kind of relationship there is, but is there a relationship? What kind? It is a positive correlation, so we'll go ahead and say that. But here's the relationship and how you would write it. As you're writing these, and that's one of the things the 8th graders have to do, they have to describe this. They have to use the words from the graph, and they always start like this. As, and they use the one along the x-axis. As years increase, number of birds. Well, what happens to the number of birds? They increase. So as years increase, number of birds increase. That's how you tell it's a positive correlation, because if it would start high and go low, you would say as years increase, then the y-axis decreases. So that's how the description goes with scatter plots. It says predict the number of birds there were in the year 2007. So they don't have a record of that, but if you look at the trend, where do you think 2007 would fit in there? Emily, what do you think?
16.
So you think it's going to go from here and it's going to jump all the way down to 16 maybe? I mean, it could, but it's definitely going to be below what?
Below 30.
It's definitely going to be below 30. She says about 16. I might say about 20, in the 20 range. What do you think?
Yeah.
Because if you look from each year, did it go down a whole line? It went down about maybe part of a line, don't you think? So maybe about 20.
But if it's 16, it'll be in front of the 15, not after the 15.
Yeah.
So it would be like right there,
Yeah.
No.
a little above that. It's hard for me to pinpoint an actual dot on this. So right there, right above that. It could be. It could be. I was just looking at this trend that these two, it's not down a full line. So we're going to, she wants to go with 16. We're going to say about 16. I think that might be a little low, but these are just predictions, right? Or estimates, about 16 birds. Okay, predict the number of birds there will be in 2012. So let's do this. Let's put this line in. What do you think about 2012? I'd say about 75. That might be a tad bit high, but we're going to go with that. And in what year do you think the bird population will reach 100? How many more you think it's going to have to be? What was that? Somebody said probably about 2015 would be my guess too. About 2015. All right, so you're just going to kind of make predictions. You're going to read what's there, realize if it's a positive correlation, negative correlation, or none. And then you might have to interpret some and answer some questions about them.